Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege to address you on the issue of the Eastern Partnership. And I should like to have this opportunity to make a few remarks regarding the achievements of the Eastern Partnership over the past year before turning to some of the challenges that we face. I should then like to conclude with some reflections on the recent development in the southern neighborhood. The Eastern Partnership was launched in Prague in May 2009 with the ambitious aim of promoting political association and further economic integration between the European Union and the 6 partner countries. Since its launch, the Eastern Partnership has made a progress and has proven its values and its continuing relevance. Let me give a few examples of successes over the past year, starting with the association agreement, although there are many more that I could refer to. At the heart of relations with our partners lie new, ambitious and forward-looking association agreements, which we are in the process of negotiating. Since the launch of the Eastern Partnership, we have opened negotiations with 4 new Eastern partners: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Moldova, and have accelerated negotiation with Ukraine. In essence, the agreement provides a blueprint for reform, which will bring our Eastern partners much closer. Ultimately, they could include, as an integral part, the establishment of deep and comprehensive free trade areas with the European Union, leading to full access to the European Union internal market of 500 million of consumers. And as a country's reform and gain access to the EU's internal market, we can expect that their share of global trade will increase, as well as trade between them. I do not believe that we could have open negotiation with all of these countries with such a speed and with such a high level of ambition, were it not for the political impetus provided by Eastern Partnership. In the area of mobility, important steps have also been made. At the end of last year, we were able to announce action plans for Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova towards the establishment of visa-free regimes for short-stay travel. On Tuesday, last Tuesday, the 1st March, visa facilitation and readmission agreements came into force with Georgia. Preparations are underway for negotiations of similar agreements with the other countries of Eastern Partnership not already benefiting from such agreements. Again, the momentum for these developments has come directly from the Eastern Partnership. We have seen a similar positive developments in a number of important areas covered by the Eastern Partnership. These include the establishment of a comprehensive institution building initiative, total value of which is 173 million euros, with the aim of strengthening the administrative capacity of our partners to carry out reform. Memoranda of understanding have now been signed with 5 of our partners. The multilateral dimension of the Eastern Partnership has now been successfully launched with a wide range of activities designed to promote exchanges of best practice and experience and partnerships across Europe in the key areas of common interest, like democratic and economic development, energy and transport, people-to-people contacts. The multilateral dimension does not just target governments. It also seeks to bring together businesses, researchers and students, civil society groups and ordinary citizens. We have also helped establish a civil society forum with representatives from all partner countries and from the EU states to ensure that the civil society is able to have a strong voice in the work that we are undertaking together, and by extension in the reform agenda in their respective countries. I saw the work of the Civil Society Forum at first hand last November in Berlin. Dear colleagues, we have achieved a great deal in the past 2 years, but much more remains to be done to ensure that the full potential of the Eastern Partnership can be realized. There is therefore no time for complacency. As you may be aware, we are currently engaged in a strategic review of the European Neighbourhood policy. This is an important exercise which should allow us to increase the effectiveness and impact of our support to countries in the neighbourhood. It will also be central to the future development of the Eastern Partnership. I should like to mention some preliminary conclusions from this process. One of the key issues concerns the concept of differentiation. Some of our neighbours are willing to conduct painful economic and political reforms. They are asking us for more support, including financial and in sensitive areas such as mobility or trade. We should not shy away from addressing these demands. In return for the continuation of reforms that make them democratic and stable countries and increasingly attractive economies. This approach, described as more for more, implies developing a framework with clear benchmarks in which our expectations of partners as regards reform are spelled out more clearly, as are the rewards that our partners will obtain if those expectations are met. These should cover governance, human rights, democracy, cooperation on security matters, as well as partners' ability to cope with competitive pressures. Those who do not make convincing progress towards meeting these benchmarks should not expect more in return from the European Union. And those who move away from these benchmarks should also expect a reaction from our part. At the same time, we need to examine where we can be more ambitious. In particular, we need to communicate with greater clarity where we wish the European Neighbourhood policy, and by extension, the Eastern Partnership, to lead. The review process is likely to recommend that we promote a strong, positive vision of closer relations based on further economic integration. And here it will be important that we escape from the logic that defines anything short of accession as a negative. As regards the Eastern Partnership itself, in the run-up to the Eastern Partnership Summit, we will work on strengthening certain aspects of the offer we made to partners 2 years ago in Prague. This could involve a number of areas: further enhancement of mobility, the opening of European Union programs to Eastern partner countries, including also access to the European Union agencies, deepening cooperation in the areas of energy and transport, further enhancing the role of civil society, considering how the Eastern Partnership can contribute to conflict prevention and resolution, as well as reflecting on Eastern partners' involvement in actions under the common foreign and security policy. I expect that we will also be able to welcome progress in further identifying pilot regional development programs in support of the goal of regional development identified in the original Prague Declaration. Of course, ultimately, the success of the Eastern Partnership will depend upon the readiness of partner countries to engage in wide-ranging systemic reforms. This means a commitment not only to an agenda of economic and sectoral reform, but also to the common values which underpin the Eastern Partnership: respect for fundamental rights, democratic values, and the rule of law. I will come back to this in a moment. I should like to make some remarks regarding the dramatic events that we have witnessed in recent months in the South. 2011 is proving to be an extraordinary year of change, with reasons for both optimism and anxiety. Like 1989 and 1990 in Eastern Europe, the changes that we are witnessing will resonate into the future. Europe needs to be ready to respond to these events with determination, imagination, and solidarity. In the turmoil and exuberance of the past weeks, a number of voices have questioned the future direction of the European Union relations with our Eastern partners. Some argue that it's time to focus our efforts away from Eastern Europe in order to respond effectively to the challenges in the South. Some contrast the gains in the South in terms of people power with backward steps in Belarus, or what they describe as democratic stagnation in Ukraine. They argue that the progress as regards so-called Western values, such as respect for human rights, democratic principles, and the rule of law, has given way under the weight of the post-Soviet legacy of corruption, cronyism, and increasing authoritarianism. Let me be clear. The European Union's determination to deepen relations with our partners in the East is unwavering. Those same considerations that have driven forward our relations over the past 20 years continue to be relevant today. Closer relations between us are essential in securing greater stability, prosperity, and democracy in Europe. Turning to some recent developments in Eastern Europe, it is true that events in Belarus following the presidential elections of 19 December have been a major test for the EU and the Eastern Partnership. And let me underline this point. Belarus poses a challenge not just for the European Union. It raises issues for all of us here to address. For its part, the European Union has unequivocally condemned the violent and unacceptable repression of the opposition and more generally on civil society. It has called for the immediate release of all those detained on political grounds. At the same time, we have worked hard to identify appropriate European Union responses to these developments. And in our reactions, we have sought to find the right combination of actions which target those responsible for the crackdown and others which support civil society and our long-term relations with the population. Similarly, we have been robust in our discussions with partners in Ukraine concerning its democratic development. We will continue to press for political reforms in Ukraine and elsewhere. It is, however, quite misleading to paint developments in Eastern Europe in a palette of grays. The picture is far more complex and nuanced. Ukraine has made an important step as regards its economic and political development, notwithstanding our concern in certain important areas. The Republic of Moldova has made an impressive reforms across the board. This said, if there is a sense of excitement and dynamism concerning the developments in the South, this is because change is being driven by those countries themselves. Whatever the European Union may offer or propose, ultimately the momentum for reform must come from our partners. And a reform agenda that does not address people's expectations as regards political freedoms and democratization is incomplete. The lessons that we draw from 1989 and from the events of recent months in the southern Mediterranean are that the political reforms are not only essential to the creation of dynamic, innovative, prosperous and just societies, they are also critical to our long-term stability. Finally, I should like to add a word on the wider region. I'm very sensitive to the idea that the Eastern Partnership is a positive agenda aiming at strengthening relations between neighbors, promoting cooperations and openness. It is certainly not intended to erect new barriers in Europe, nor should it be seen as a zero-sum game as regards other partners in the region, such as Russia. We should therefore study ways of including third interested parties in some Eastern Partnership activities. Let me stop here, ladies and gentlemen, to have more time for what I hope is going to be an interactive discussions on what I see as indeed a challenging issue, neighborhood in general, and the Eastern Partnership in concrete. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Stefan. And let me look around the floor and take a couple of questions for Commissioner FÜLE. Here we go. One question, second question, third question over here. So I'll ask microphone over here for the first question, please.
Commissioner, we have had a discussion here, extensive discussion on different aspects of foreign policy. Do you feel that because of our, institution building within the Union, economic, financial crisis, the problems with formulating some aspects of the foreign policy of the Union, that the drawing force of the Union have weakened and that we are somehow less attractive to some of our partners in the East and in the South than we were before?
Thank you. Second question was Tomáš Valášek, and third question, Mr. Bruce Jackson. Can we take three questions and then we will take another round?
Thank you, Commissioner. Tomáš Valášek, CR. Quick question on visas. As you know better than others, you can't have a conversation with EAP countries without the debate turning to visas within 90 seconds. What's your sense of the politics of visas within the EU governments? What are the obstacles? How far can we go? Even if the countries did everything we ask of them to do, how far would the politics of EU governments let you go in terms of improving mobility and abolishing visa requirements?
Thank you. Bruce?
Commissioner Bruce Jackson. In a panel earlier today, there was a discussion about a non-paper about the resources the EU would allocate to its many challenges, and it cited, I think, 1.6 euros for Tunisia and 25 euros for Moldova, and said that should be reversed. I don't think that was the sentiment in this audience as we were looking to this panel. What do you make of this resource debate, and is this part of your strategic review of the neighborhood policy?
All right, Stefan, so now you got three tough questions.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the first question, in the discussion with some of my partners, the issue of attractiveness has been raised. In a sense that indeed this is sort of this magnetic power the European Union had to attract the partners closer to the European Union. The people sometimes saying maybe it's not that this attractiveness has decreased, But there is so many things going on that the sort of the transparency and predictability of where the EU is going, the Eurozone is going, the Euro, is making them at least to raise these issues. I don't see really concrete implications in the policies. But the debate, yes, that's not a good news. The good news is that for the first time after the Lisbon Treaty, the European Union is able to put together the two important sets of its instrument. Those political, if you'd like, the common foreign and security policy instrument, and those of community, communitarian approach. For the first time, instead of competition, we have a process where we actually putting a euro where we have a certain expectations. And that means a lot for a coherence of the European Union. I think if you're really objective and looking at our reactions to the South, you will see that our reaction has changed. Can you imagine facing this historical opportunity under the presidency limited by 6 months? Can you imagine this historic opportunity, being welcomed just by one or two or small group of the member states who have a specific interest in that region? Cathy Ashton, the High Representative and Vice President of the Commission, was able to formulate quite a coherent EU policy backed by the extensive means of the European Commission. And that's what probably balancing the first part of your question. The second one, visa. This is a very delicate issue. In Western Balkans, we have achieved a lot, but is it irreversible? I'm not sure. If you look at the number of the people who are misusing this visa-free regime, you will understand that some of the government who are affected are actually asking for a reverse policy. And we probably might see in the future some concrete ideas of mechanism, which will reverse this policy. Of course, this has an implications on Eastern Partnership. If you look at in the case of Western Balkans, we call it roadmap. In the case of Eastern Partnership, we call it action plan. Based on the experience with roadmaps, it's now 2 stages where the member states are making absolutely clear it's not automatic process. It's not only that you fulfill all the requirements and automatically you will have a visa-free regime. No, we have an important word to say. And then you have a specific case of Turkey, where it is very, very unfortunate that when our mind is focused on the needs of the countries of the South, when we're starting sort of to realize the magnitude of our comprehensive reaction to that in the shadow of all of that, the member states have not been able to agree on starting a visa dialogue with Turkey with the long-term perspective of visa-free regime. Turkey, candidate country, Turkey, which with us negotiated successfully a readmission agreement, which is so important, not only for Turkey, but first of all for us. The visa issue is going to be one of the most sensitive issue we need to tackle, particularly vis-à-vis the South. If you look at Tunisia, you could fight those dozens and hundreds of the young Tunisians trying to achieve our shores on the sea or through some mobility partnership and other programs in Tunisia. I'm confident that there are programs we could benefit from young Tunisian working on the basis of circular mobility in the EU and then are coming back without actually putting under the question security in the Schengen area. Resources. There are those who are saying that the division of the resources should remain as it is, 2 to 1. Okay, 1 the east, 2 to the south. I believe that the money should go where the action is and where the reform is. I mean, those money are not to support some kind of regime. I mean, this money goes to reform and transform the societies. Do I see, Bruce, an imminent danger of redirecting money from the east to the south? No. But at least not within this financial perspective. Do I see that danger in the next financial perspective? Yes, I do. Absolutely. And with all due respect, if all the action will be in the south and will be moving forward, and if all we will be able to do in the east is to have another unfortunate elections, it will have impact, and we need to realize that, and we need to be absolutely frank to our Eastern partners. The more efforts you generate, the more we will be able to help you. But it works also the other way around.
Good. I think we still have a little time for very fast round of questions. Gentleman here was the first. I'll take one lady over here and one lady at the back, and those 3 questions will conclude. Maybe we can reverse. Start it with the lady at the back because Mike is over there. It will come down.
Thank you. Is it me first? Jacqueline Hale from the Open Society Institute in Brussels. My question is also on the resource issue, coming from a slightly different angle. Since 1995, the EU had given over 1 billion euros to the Tunisian government. Meanwhile, the civil society in Tunisia had been crying out for support. And according to our research in the eastern neighbourhood, through the main geographical instrument, civil society was receiving less than 5%, is receiving, under this financial perspective, less than 5% of the funds. So my question is, what plans does the Commission now have to rebalance this part of the equation? And for your information, Commissioner, we've had some debates here earlier today about the need, whether it's a good idea to have a European fund for democracy. It's a contentious issue amongst ourselves, but it's in the absence of a geographical funding pot for the civil society in the eastern neighbourhood. We may see a repetition of down the line of the events that we've seen in the south. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And could you kindly pass the microphone right here in the middle down?
Thanks so much. Mr. Commissioner, my name is Jaap de Zwaan, Klingendaal in the Netherlands. I was wondering, how do you qualify the status of the Eastern Partnership? Is it a kind of waiting room arrangement, or is it a kind of final arrangement with regard to the Eastern neighbors? A follow-up question is, do you think we are able to fully achieve the objectives of the Eastern Partnership without also looking to create a more stable relationship with the Russian Federation? So when we did our work at Klingendahl, we always were of the opinion, without a stable relationship with the Russian Federation, it would be very difficult to make the Eastern Partnership to a full success. And my final question is with regard to Northern Africa. Does the Commission consider, in view of the developments which are not linked to religious consideration, but are all oriented versus peace, stability, prosperity for the people, does the Commission consider a special kind of action plan in which Europe would be able to exercise its strong force, the soft power approach, with regard to helping to create and to help them to construct civil society, good governance system, etc., etc.?
Thank you very much. And just over the shoulder, the last question of this session, please.
Thank you. Elena Korostilova, Aberystwyth University. There are clearly a lot of incentivizing steps are envisaged for the near future in the neighborhood. But could you perhaps tell us how the lack of cohesion and strategic vision, especially between, within the policy and especially between Brussels officials and in-country officials, are going to be tackled in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. A couple of very easy questions to finish this. So, floor is yours.
Looking at the programs to support the civic society in the south and east, and more concretely, some countries in the south, I have realized that it's not really about money or the size of the money, amount of the money. I give you an example. Tunisia. It's a program for judicial reform. Something like 60 million of euros. It's a substantive program. For the years 2007-2010, we have been allowed by the Tunisian government, the former Tunisian government, to invest more than half of the money, not in the software, but in the hardware, in the building. So that's why for the years 2011-2013, we have pushed the third and final stage, of this judicial reform support program to the year 2012-13. In a hope that we will be able to persuade them at least the rest of the money to invest in people. Now, with the new transition government, we're moving the money forward, and I'm sure that we'll be able, for the same amount of money, to deliver much more than we have delivered so far. The second remark is that what's really great about the Eastern Partnership, that it is this civic society forum, the steering committee, the work in between these forums. This is a number of the fantastic people with great ideas, with all full support from the Commission, who are a part of almost all activities in the sphere of multilateral dimension of the Eastern Partnership. They add the value to a number of the panels and other activities in this multilateral efforts. They adding this civil society very important view. What is now very important, and we talked to them a couple of weeks ago only, that they focus more and more also on the countries themselves. We have established, or they have established, with exception of, I guess, Moldova, Yuri, the national platform of the civic society. And it is through that national platform, actually, there's a civic society now in partner countries, then participate in the work of forums and the steering committee. The offer I made in Berlin is the following. Let us stay focused on the multilateral dimension of the Eastern Partnership with the civic society value added, but let us mobilize these national platforms to have a structured dialogue with the authorities with the help of the EU delegation as a first step. So it will be the EU delegation initiated process, inviting the civic society representative, the national platforms, inviting the representatives of the authorities, debating the various topical things for the reform in this country, in that particular country, and the issues which are relevant for the EU relations with that country, with a clear hope and expectations that over the time the authorities will understand that the main rule of inclusive political process is to have an active dialogue with the civic society, and they will take gradually over that from us. Now, the second question, the second set of questions. If you look at the neighborhood policy, and if I ask you to define it, what is it? Is it a set of the instruments, or is it an end game? I guess everybody who is being asked answers logically. It's a set of instruments. It's getting me from somewhere to somewhere, from point A to point B. What we missed is we have never identified the point A. This is probably not really the most important thing. But we have never identified the point B. We have never actually identified the end game of this process. We know from all our partners, there is almost no exception, and I mean it, they want to have the relationship with their country, or they want to see their country as close as possible to the European Union. But how would you define, as close as possible? How would you define it in the case of Tunisia, in the case of Morocco, in the case of Ukraine, in the case of Georgia, in the case of Moldova? You will have a number of interpretation. I strongly believe that as a part of the review process, we need to address this issue, and we need to add more clarity to this point. I'm afraid we will not be able, for obvious reasons, to offer them, particularly the countries in the Eastern Partnership, the European perspective. But I think to define this endgame from the positive point of view and not a negative one, as I mentioned in the humble speech, is important. It is also important that our partners understand that it is the Eastern Partnership which helps them to build more of the European Union inside their countries. And it is that through this process, they actually push their countries closer to the European Union, and then consequently, through this sort of very logic process, putting on the table the question of the European aspiration. I think this is the right path to follow. I as far as the relationship with Russia, I made the point that this is not a zero-sum game and should be seen as a win-win approach. At the same time, I think we need to be aware, and I'm talking in the general terms and not specifically about the Eastern Partnership. There is a competition around us. There are a number of other ways of governance. There are a number of other set of values around us. And unless we, and this is probably back to the question of being attractive and having the attractive offer, unless we indeed are there with attractive offer, we might actually lose our neighborhood. And taking into account the challenges of the globalized world, that would be rather unfortunate. Coming back to Russia. I see the advantage to have Russia more involved as a partner, as by the way, the United States and other partners in what we're doing in the Eastern Partnership. When we had a discussion with Foreign Minister Lavrov just last week, we actually made the following offer. I mean, why we cannot look at the external dimension of Eastern Partnership on one side and the external dimension of Partnership for Modernization, Russia on this side. And maybe we find some bridges which would be, interested for our partners. It is important not only to talk to our neighbors, which is our first priority, but it's also important to talk to the neighbors of our neighbors. But what is really very, very important is that dialogue is being held not at the detriment of our relationship with our partners, that we are not speaking about them without them. Special action for the South. I think it is in the making. As far as Tunisia, we have already a special package. Because we know what's expected from us. We know a lot about their plans. We are interacting with the 3 commissions they have established. We have some general sketches, as far as Egypt is concerned, because we are there only at the beginning of this process. As far as Tunisia, it's about the 17 million euros for some short-term needs. And the biggest challenge now is to look at this annual 80 million euro. This is the cost of supporting the Tunisia, by the way. In the case of Egypt, it's 145 million euros a year. And looking whether we actually supporting the right kind of programs. Whether there is a compatibility between what's expected from us and what we are offering. And I'm again confident that for the same amount of money, we could do much more with a pro-reform oriented authorities. Lack of the cohesion of the vision. That was interesting when we have started with Cathy Ashton the review of the neighbourhood policy in summer. We thought it would be great, to see whether it's working. It would be great and important and useful to reflect on the Lisbon Treaty and the new instrument. And it would be great to do it a little bit differently. What I mean differently, we have started this process, and this is not a secret, without having any blueprint for a new neighbourhood policy. We did not have it. We thought, let's invite member states, let's invite our partners, let's invite think tanks, let's invite the representatives of the civil society, the legislators, and have a dialogue, have a discussion And let's sort of put then the pieces of mosaic together. And through that process, sort of, achieve a certain result. And it was quite an interesting process. Because the people, particularly our partners, they have not believed that we started this process without, actually putting something on the table. But we told them, we made it absolutely clear to them, listen, we want your ownership also, okay? The neighborhood policy cannot be successful if we only impose something on you, what we think is good and useful. So this is a chance for you to define it together with us, the neighborhood policy. So it is this review process, which I hope very much will bring to the coherence of what we are doing in Brussels and what the member states are doing. This is a process which is to enter the final stage at the end of April, where the Commission and the External Action Service will present the communication on this issue. And then I expect the intensification of the debate with the European Parliament, which is already ongoing, and also, of course, with the member states and our partners. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Commissioner FÜLE. Stefan, thank you very much for your very nice address and very frank and candid responses. And we are about to shift to another point of the program. I'm sorry, Secretary Gordon, for this delay, but Robert Vash will introduce the last, and there is a little change in the program, the last point of today, since Minister Grishenko, on the very last notice, changed his program. So, floor goes to you, Secretary Gordon, and Robert, please be so kind to introduce Secretary on the stage.